we have time to on Thursday, we like to do a mindfulness moment. We started doing this a little over a year ago because first of all, I did a course in mindfulness, and I just saw that it made a difference in what I was able to do with my son. I'm always going to be a helicopter parent, let's be honest about that, but I was able to let the apron strings go a little further without personal stress to me because I did the mindfulness class. And I definitely think we always need to be looking at stress and how to reduce stress. This is good for us and it's good for our kids. So one of the things I learned about mindfulness is, and I'm direct quoting Evelyn Gould, it's like Ireland Day today on the show. So Evelyn used to come on the show and talk about having a moral compass, that we all have things that are morally important to us. And that sometimes when we are in big strife, it's because there are two things that we care deeply about that are on our moral compass. And that when you're feeling the stress of something, it's important to look at it and go, wait a second, what's happening here and where are we on my moral compass? Because you always want to be pointed in the direction of what your morals think that are important. Now, for me and our family, how we languaged it when our son was diagnosed with autism, how I didn't know about moral compass, but I said, let's write a manifesto for our family, like what's important to us. Let's put, criteria, like what's the most important thing. And as soon as we found out that there was help and support and that there was therapy that could make our son's life better, but it was a huge investment of time, energy, and emotion, and money, we said, okay, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. And so we made this manifesto up, and it was in a way our moral compass. And so we prioritized, and at the top of the manifesto for years, and by the way, every year or anytime something was kind of wonky, we go, let's pull out the manifesto and like look and see, and maybe we need to change the order. Maybe let's not make the manifesto drive the bus, but let's be clear and mindful about what we're choosing to attend to. And so, number one for a lot of years was our son's treatment, that everything else came after that. And for a lot of years, what was number two was my husband's career. That was number two because we didn't want to let that go. So the stuff and I had made and been, party to the manifesto for a lot of years, me having a career wasn't on the manifesto. I needed to have a job, and I did things because, it wasn't that we were saying it's never going to be important again. And when it was time, my career and the things that I was doing moved up on the manifesto. But what was number one was still my son's therapy over my career, over my husband's career. By the way, my marriage and keeping my marriage and having a good relationship with my husband and my son was also above, although it jockeyed sometimes. There was a year in which we said, this is going to have to be after making sure that we have a way of money coming in. Because we got to keep the roof over the head, because what's number one? The therapy. And that was the way we ordered things. But when we would have strife, it was easier to pull out the thing and go, wait a second, what's the priority here? I remember there was a job that came, my husband's an actor, and there was a job that came up, and it meant that he was going to have to go away for several days into the desert to film something. And he was saying, I don't feel like I should go right now. And really having some angst about that. And I said, well, according to the manifesto, Jem getting his therapy is number one. I can do that while you go to the desert to do the thing. We can do both of these things. And as soon as I said that, my husband was able to go, really? I don't want to leave you. And I said, look, I'm totally capable. It's only a few days. I can make this happen. You go to the desert and make that movie. And so we did. And honestly, I think I now think of it as, I always have thought of our manifesto, but it's like a moral compass. I think of that as being one of the single greatest tools that kept my relationship with my husband solid, because we didn't have to guess, and I didn't have to, I get resentful and be like, oh, your job's more important than my job. We talked about it. We figured it out. No, for right now, this is the criteria. My job is being project manager for autism, and when it was time for my career to come back into play, it did. So I don't have to carry around any like, how did that happen? We chose it. We were mindful. So if you're having strife, stop and take out a moral compass and say, what's most important to me? Am I moving towards that? And do I have two things that are happening here that are loggerheads? That, sometimes just acknowledging that, I have two things that are important to me is a lot better than being in the pain of what are we going to do? And then you can decide for right now, this thing is slightly more important than that thing. Or maybe there's a way that we can do both of them and acknowledge both of these things are important to us. Having a moral compass and being mindful about what you choose means you can get more done, be happier while you're doing it, and experience less stress. Woohoo! It's a good thing.